thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with all of you, and I know this is a breakfast, but I want to actually start out by talking about lunch. So we're gonna take a little trip in the Wayback Machine. Think about when you were in like elementary school, middle school, school lunch, okay? I don't know if you bought your lunch at the cafeteria, maybe you got free and reduced lunch, maybe you packed your lunch. But what was the lunch that you got super excited about? For me, if we had Pizza Hut pizza at home, which was like very much a treat, and we had some leftovers, I would pack that cold pizza, wrap it in foil, or way before I was a vegetarian, sometimes we would get like KFC or Church's chicken, a cold piece of fried chicken wrapped up in some foil, and like all morning long through math class, through reading class, I'm like, I know that piece of chicken is waiting for me in my lunchbox. Or if it was a day I looked at the school menu and I saw like, ooh, Mexican pizza's coming up, I was looking forward to that all morning. So what was it for you? I want to hear you tell me.
Pizza.
Pizza. It's always pizza. My kids too. Monday and Thursday, Hillsborough County Schools Pizza Day. I know it by heart. What else? Anything besides pizza?
Sloppy Joe's.
Sloppy Joe's. Right. Okay. Yeah. Ooh, I make them once in a while. I'll make the vegan ones. If you make your own sauce, pretty good. Anybody else? Favorite lunch? Vicky? Yes.
Or yodelos.
Ring things, that's a good one. Actually, where I'm from in Cleveland, there was a discount bakery, and my parents would drive us there maybe like once a month, and we would load up on like ho-hos, ring dings, Twinkies, and we had one of those giant freezers in the garage, and so we got to pack those in our lunch. So as adults, we don't really get that opportunity as much to like get super excited about lunch. Some of you are probably so busy that maybe you don't even get to eat lunch. You are sitting, there are a lot of days, my husband is sitting in his chair all day. Dalia Colón, maybe some of you know him. And he's like, I had Zoom meetings all day and I just grabbed a handful of pretzels and that was it, right? We've all had those days. And it kind of stinks because you're all here doing good work for the community. You work probably longer than 9 to 5 and you got up early to come to this networking event. And you deserve to have that good, excited lunch feeling too. So in a little bit, I'm gonna tell you an easy way you can do that. But first, I do wanna introduce myself. As Tom said, my name is Dalia Colón, and thank you so much for having me. I've done all sorts of journalism work throughout Tampa Bay. Right now, I'm the executive producer and host of the Zest Podcast, which is a Florida food podcast from the NPR network, and my colleague Alex Ebron is here with me today. She's actually speaking at an event later this week hosted by Homegrown Hillsborough next Thursday, so be sure to check that out as well. That's free and open to the public. On the Zest, we talk to all sorts of people in the food world, food historians, James Beard award-winning chefs. That's like the Oscars of the cooking world. We talk to home cooks, we talk to fishermen and gardeners, and just anything that has to do with food in Florida, or even drinks. We do wine and we do craft beer and all kinds of fun stuff. So through that, I ended up doing some other food writing. And then in January of 2021, I was contacted by the University Press of Florida. I got an email from an editor. January 2021 was not a super fun time for most of us, right? Unless maybe you own Zoom or Uber Eats or something like that. But most of us were not having a super great time. At the time, I had a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. My 7-year-old, yeah, right? My 7-year-old was doing e-learning. Anybody had any experience with e-learning? Not fun. And then my 3-year-old, we had to pull him out of preschool. So I was trying to teach him how to read using like stuff I found on Pinterest. He couldn't write his name. I was worried that he wasn't going to be ready for kindergarten. Then I opened up my inbox. Dalia, we're looking for new cookbook authors. Are you interested? I'm like, wow, this is terrible timing. Yes. So I went ahead and developed the book, which came out in March of this year, the Florida Vegetarian Cookbook, which, by the way, was a lot of work. Chip did the photos, and he can tell you more about that. But how many vegetarians or vegans do we have in the room? A couple. Okay, this is great because really this book is for the rest of you, because the people who raise their hands, they already know where to get their protein. They already know how to make pizza and other food taste delicious. But a lot more people are leaning into a plant-based diet. The Pew Research Center says that about 5% of Americans are vegetarian or vegan. So vegetarian means you don't eat meat. Vegan means you don't eat any animal products. So dairy, butter, cheese, eggs, anything like that. And a lot more people, even though they eat meat occasionally or fish, are leaning into things like Meatless Monday, or just in trying to incorporate more fruits and veggies into their diet. So does that apply to anybody here? I mean, who doesn't want to be eating more? I'm a vegetarian and I'm raising my hand like, yes, I need to be eating more vegetables too. So the book and today's message are really for you all, just to kind of help you along in your journey. I'm not here to talk you into anything, but I do want to say it's better for the planet. It's better for your health. It's better for the animals, you know. And you know how you get that feeling after lunch that's kind of like, that like 3 o'clock slump. But then you know when you eat stuff that actually makes you feel good. There's a lot of delicious, as we just heard, plant-based food that tastes great and doesn't leave you with that kind of heavy, gross feeling afterward. I mean, I'll give you a few examples from the book. There's a buffalo cauliflower in there that's very much adjacent to a chicken wing. Ray's nodding his head, love that. It's like got the panko breadcrumbs, so you get that nice crunch, and then you bite into it, and it's like meaty on the inside from the roasted cauliflower. And you can change up the sauces. If you use the buffalo sauce, then you get the sweet, you get the heat. So you're watching the Olympics, you're watching, you know, the NBA when that starts up. That's like the perfect food to eat for that. We've got a butternut squash mac and cheese. How many people love mac and cheese? That was another popular one on the school lunch menu for me. I always loved the mac and cheese, but a lot more of us are trying to cut back on dairy. And so you have a plant-based cheese sauce that is made with nutritional yeast, which is kind of like the magic fairy dust of vegan cooking, because it creates this like salty, creamy, you put some cashews in there, you get that creamy, comforting texture with, again, the panko breadcrumbs, but it's made with squash, so all plant-based. So you could switch it up, you could do carrots, you could do sweet potatoes. So there are a lot of recipes like that in the book. Just last week, my husband and I had a vegan lasagna, and he was very skeptical because he does eat meat. And when I said, tonight we're having vegan lasagna, he looked at me like I was crazy. He scarfed it down. Again, I used the nutritional yeast, and for the base I used almonds. So there's your protein. There are plenty of ways to get your protein. And I made this like creamy faux cashew that I used with the almonds, and it was really good. So how can we bring more of that into your life? I know not everybody's gonna be making their own vegan cheese sauce. That might be like too heavy of a lift, but thinking back to that school lunch that you were excited about, what is the adult equivalent? Salad. Before you kick me out. When you think salad, you're probably thinking what? Iceberg lettuce, wilted. I ordered some Domino's pizza for my kids the other day, and I ordered a salad for myself, and it was like, I took pictures of it. It was so disgusting. No shade to Domino's. But this thing was like brown lettuce, like a couple of sad little cherry tomatoes. The croutons were soggy, and they came in a little plastic bag. Like, how is that even possible? So I know when you think salad, you're like, not for me, not my jam. But I'm here to tell you, there are ways that you can elevate a salad so that it's the lunch you get excited about as an adult. So when you're doing all your great work for the community, you can stop and take that break for yourself, because a lot of these things could be made the night before and it's just there ready for you. And then afterward, you still have energy, you still feel good about yourself, and later, if you wanted to eat some chicken wings or some sloppy joe, you know, you at least did something good for yourself. So a few weeks ago, we were at the 4th of July fireworks at Julian B. Lane Park, right down the road, with a couple other families, and you know the moms always have our text chain going. Who's bringing what? I'm bringing this, I'm bringing this. So I said, I'll bring salad. And I also brought Oreos, so don't think that I'm just healthy all the time. But I said, I'll bring a salad. And I asked my son's best friend's dad, Jim, do you want some salad? He's like, I'm good. And then I took out the salad, and he saw it, and he's like, actually, I will have some. He ended up having seconds. And I want to leave you with 4 quick tips, A, B, C, and D, of making your salad better. Because yes, at some point, you may be the person who makes the panko crusted cauliflower or the vegan lasagna or any of those other things, but you can start with something that requires no cooking, and that's a salad. And so I'm gonna give you the A, B, C, D of improving your salad for yourself, your family, your lunch, your dinner. A is add color. And I'm looking at Chip. I actually wrote your name down. I didn't know you were gonna be here, but this guy was so generous with his time. He did the photos for the cookbook, all the beautiful photos that you see. Have you spoken here before? You guys need to have him here, up here, because he's the man. But Chip Weiner is a photographer based in South Tampa, and he's taught me so much about how to make food look better, because one thing that the chefs, all the chefs we've interviewed over the years on the Zest Podcast, they always say, we eat with our eyes first. And it's so true. And so what made Jim say no to a salad, and then as soon as I took it out, change it to a yes? It was the way that it looked. If you have kids or grandkids or nieces and nephews, when you're preparing food for them, you try to make it as attractive as possible. And you gotta do that for yourself too. And so A stands for add color. You've gotta make it as colorful as possible. And something Chip taught me was the importance of the color wheel. You remember the color wheel from art class? Complementary colors. Just bringing in colors that sort of go together, it draws in your eye. Tell me if I'm getting this wrong, but red and green go together, right, Chip? I'm nervous now because I didn't know you were gonna be here. But so if you're making like a marinara sauce, or even using like a jarred marinara sauce, if you want it to just have a little extra pop, maybe you throw in like some green basil that you grew. That's just something super easy that you can do, because when we grow our food, of course we want to eat it. So now you've got the red and green, and it draws in your eye just a little bit more. So each color, of course, has its own superpower in terms of nutrition, but we're not even worried about that, because if it doesn't taste good, you're not going to stick with it. So yes, it's good for you, but also it just looks more attractive to your eye. So A is add color. B is bite, and this is where it's a party in your mouth. Like, every bite needs to be amazing. It needs to have variety. It needs to have texture, and this is where you can really go crazy. So I like to have something crunchy. That could be a kale, that could be shredded carrots, anything like that. I like to have something chewy, so maybe that's dates. I will throw in some sun-dried tomatoes. The salad from the 4th of July that the guy got seconds of, that had cherry tomatoes and sun-dried tomatoes, which you wouldn't normally think of, but your mouth is just like going crazy. And then I like, some protein, so maybe some leftover quinoa from last night's dinner, maybe some farro, that you could throw some leftover chicken on there if you had it. There's all kinds of things you could do. Pickled onions, my kids love pickles. Yes, you can be fancy and make all sorts of pickling recipes, but I'll just take like a little bit of pickle juice straight out of the jar and pour it on top of like some chopped onions or some shredded carrots, and that adds another layer of flavor. You can do things like sunflower seeds, you can do candied pecans. You just end up with like little odds and ends of food that you're like, this isn't enough for a meal, what am I supposed to do with it? Like, I had one piece of corn left the other day, and I just cut it off the cob and put it on the salad. So all sorts of things you can do to make your salad more interesting. You can use up little leftover pieces of fruit, dried fruit. There's a million possibilities there. So B is for bite. C could have been for color, but then that would have messed up my ABCD thing. So C is for chickpeas. People ask, where do you get your protein? And there are a million places you can get it, but chickpeas, any chickpea fans? Yes, these are my people. So yes, chickpeas are fantastic because they're so versatile. They're inexpensive. You can buy them in the can, already softened, and you can have them raw. You can put them in your air fryer. I don't have an air fryer because I'm not fancy like that, but I have a toaster oven, and I'll put the chickpeas in there with like some olive oil, garlic, salt, paprika, and they taste so good that half the time they don't even make it onto the salad. I just end up eating them by the handful. So there are a million proteins that you could add to your salad, but I would say chickpeas are a really easy one to start with. And then D is for dressing. Does anybody make your own salad dressing? It's so much better, isn't it? On a Sunday, if you take 10 minutes to whip up a little vinaigrette, it will change your entire week, because now you have something that you can put on a salad. You can put on hot veggies even. You could even use it as a marinade for meat. And there are so many dressings. So actually with that Domino's pizza salad that I told you about the other night that was like such a disappointment, I ended up sort of adding to it. And the first thing I did was make my own dressing, and it was just like some red wine vinegar, olive oil, a little mustard, maybe garlic, but you don't even have to get that fancy. It could be like some hummus. If you have those little hummus packs, you could take one of those and like add a little lemon juice to it, or a little water. It could be some tahini with maple syrup. There are just so many quick dressings you can make. Even if you're buying a salad from a restaurant, making your own dressing will change your life. It really will. And so again, the ABCDs of making a better salad are A, add color, B, bite, C, chickpeas, and D, dressing. So we can't always have that sloppy Joe pizza experience, but we can make a lunch or dinner that we're excited about. And for more quick and easy plant-based meal ideas, you can find them in the Florida Vegetarian Cookbook, which will be for sale in the lobby for $32 immediately after this presentation. Or you can just Google it. It's a great time to go plant-based. Even if you're gonna eat meat sometimes, even if you're just gonna do Meatless Monday, there are so many people you can find on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, who are putting this information out there for free. And so I would just encourage you to lean into it a little bit, because you all do such great work for the community, and you deserve to fill up your own tank first. So thank you so much.
Obviously, there's a lot of nutritional value to this sort of diet, but you mentioned also the environmental impact, and I was hoping that you could maybe talk a little bit about your perspective on that, and how does it tie into your desire to write this book?
Great question. So I became a vegetarian, I think 11 years ago, and I went cold turkey, no pun intended, after watching a documentary called Vegucated, and I just saw what eating meat was doing to the animals and to the environment and to our health, and I was like, not for me. There's enough plant-based food that's great that I don't need to have this as a part of my life anymore. But I can't remember the source. You can fact check me on this. But the meat industry is more devastating to the environment than all of the transportation industry. So that includes like planes, trains, automobiles. So if you drive a Tesla, but you're eating burgers, you know, you'd be better off driving something else and not eating the burger. You know what I mean? So for me, that was probably not a super hard decision, but I'm also not somebody who like craves meat, and I am someone who spends a lot of time cooking my own food. And actually, when the publishing company approached me about writing the cookbook, they gave me options. They said, pitch us a couple ideas and we'll pick the one we like. And so this was one of the ideas. So I could have been up here talking to you about something else.
So your environmental impact, there's a big issue with both almonds and cashews, either environmentally or foods that fix the cashews. So there's always a trade-off. And then how many calories do you need to consume to get the amount of protein that you would get from lean dairy? So I prefer to eat less meat, but I have a hard time justifying the other impacts that it has.
That's a fair point. Some nuts take a lot of water, and almonds and pistachios, I believe, have gotten a lot of flack for that lately. But then there are other sources like quinoa, farro, tempeh, seitan, edamame, tofu, and a lot of vegetables naturally contain protein as well. So I think you're supposed to get a third of your weight in grams of protein every day. So if you weigh like 200 pounds, then you would want like 66 grams of protein. And that is completely achievable. There are also those protein powders, the plant-based protein powders that use a pea protein. And you can add those to a smoothie, put them in your oatmeal. I'll make like little protein energy balls with peanut butter to take to the gym and things like that. But I hear your point. It's not like a panacea, like, oh, if I'm eating plant-based, then it's automatically better for the environment, or it's automatically healthier, because again, those Oreos are vegan, but they're not the best. I know a lot of junk food vegans, so that's a good point.
I love what you're doing. Thank you for sharing it. I love your ABCs and your read and do all of that. And just speaking to what you're saying about almonds and cashews and all of that, vegan and vegetarian can, depending on how you do it, have a big impact on the environment, which is if you're buying all the pre-made fake meats, fake cheeses, and all of that. That's where it really can be just as bad as eating the meat that's out there. So what you were saying is keep it real. Like if you eat real food and you keep it colorful and have variety, and just buy like from bulk so that you're getting smaller amounts, less waste, and better impact to the environment.
Yes, excellent point. Thank you for that. And I recently started eating eggs again because I live in a neighborhood where several of my neighbors have their own chickens. And so I wasn't feeling great about necessarily the way the chickens are treated when you buy the eggs at the store. But now I can, like, the chickens are my friends now, so I can get the eggs. I know where they're coming from. But that's a good point, because a lot of those, like, Beyond Burgers and things like that are very much processed, and you might not feel great about having those either.
My name is Patrick Chino. I'm a big fan of Zest. And your enthusiasm, whatever you're doing, is so infectious.
Oh,
I
thank you.
love it. Anyway, I have a question about school lunches. I've been fascinated. We were all snowed, especially my generation, by the Department of Agriculture's industry-driven food pyramid, which the one comment I would make, it clogged a lot of arteries in the United States. Where do you see things going with school lunches? I mean, it's been all over the place. Schools have been so marginalized and everything, but it is, for a lot of kids, the source of quote-unquote nutrition. Do you see any innovation in that? And also more sustainable things? I'm like Linda. I still eat meat, but I'm trying to cut my portions to a reasonable amount. I'm amazed when I go to Spain and visit my relatives. When I prepare food for them, they look at my portions, they're like, what the heck is this? You know, but anyway, any innovation in school lunches?
Oh man, school lunches are rough. So we just interviewed Chef Marcus Clark. He runs an organization out of St. Petersburg called Yes Chef Kitchen, and he'll be on the Zest in September, I believe. But he was saying, he's around my age, he's 40 or 41, and he was saying, you know, school lunches were terrible when I was a kid, and I was on free and reduced lunch, so I had to eat the school lunch. And then I went and had lunch with my 7-year-old son recently at school, and it's exactly the same. And I get the calendar too for my kids, and it is exactly the same. Have you seen it? Nothing has changed. All the stuff you guys named, the pizzas, the sloppy joes, all of that, it's all still there. I have noticed some more plant-based options, like sometimes they'll have a tofu or something like that. But I've seen more like individual schools doing things, maybe having a vegetable garden. But on the macro level, tell me anybody if I'm wrong, but it's the same. And that's really sad. Like, they still serve milk with everything. There's a lot of beef, a lot of cheese. But you're right, it's all these industries, even corn, like everything has corn in it. So I don't know when that's gonna change.
Okay. I'm gonna bring this here. I travel the world, and I spent a month in Asia earlier this year, and I actually lost 14 pounds because I don't know about you, but I've just noticed there's a lot of process and a lot of preservatives in the food here in the United States. And as I've run through the political office, I've been talking to a lot of voters, and they have a lot of concerns about the prices of things right now and affordability. Can you talk for a moment about affordability around eating healthy? Because I've just noticed that in America, it's way more expensive to eat healthy. Can you just talk about that for a second?
That's such a good point. Food has gotten more expensive, but compared to other countries, we spend a smaller percentage of our income and our time on preparing food. So maybe people in other countries don't have as much money as we have, but they're willing to spend a greater proportion of their money on the food that they're eating and taking time to prepare it. And in America, I mean, it's like anything goes. And it's almost like I need you to save me from myself, because when you go to even other countries, the Skittles are not as bright. They don't allow all those different dyes in their food. But in America, you really have to police yourself because they'll just let us get away with anything. But I'm glad you brought up the idea of global travel, because another tip that didn't fit into the ABCD, if you're looking to go more plant-based, is to think more globally. Because if you think of some of your favorite cuisines, like maybe Thai, Indian, things like that, they are just naturally more plant-based. And so if you're worried about substituting things and, oh, it's not gonna taste the same, just maybe go to your Latin grocery store or your Asian grocery store in your neighborhood and check out what's there, and you can make some really delicious food. The best food, wedding food, not great most of the time, but the best food I ever had at a wedding was my friend married a guy from India. And we went to their wedding, and the food, all vegetarian, fantastic. And no, my husband's, he eats meat, and no complaints from anyone. It was fantastic. And so I think if we start thinking more like people around the world, we would be better off. And the other thing too, when you're traveling around the world, is you probably walk more, which is great. And you're closer to your food, which is amazing. So again, it's a great time to try some of this stuff out because we have access to information from all over the world and influencers and things like that. So thank you for bringing that up.
Do you have any future plans for doing any more stuff with another cookbook or TV show?
Ooh, I don't know. It's a lot of work. Maybe if there's another pandemic, I'll have some more time on my hands. But no, actually, it has led to some other opportunities, like being here with all of you, doing a lot of cooking segments on TV, which is a whole other animal. I could do a whole talk about the things I've learned just about that. But this has opened up some doors, and I've started a Google Doc. You know, everything always starts with a Google Doc, so just jotting down maybe some recipes that weren't in the book and things like that. So we'll see. Something I have been working on recently is a project with Florida Humanities and the Smithsonian. So they're bringing food-related museum exhibitions to different sites in Florida in 2025, and I've been asked to be a consultant on that project, so that's been super fun, just related to like Florida food history and the future of food and sustainability and all of that, and that's never something I thought I would do. So the Zest Podcast, if I'll just give you a little background, it started because WUSF, the local NPR radio station, decided to apply for this grant to produce a podcast. Sherry knows all about that. They didn't even get the grant. They had called me and said, hey, if we get this, we're thinking of starting a food podcast. Can we put your name down as the producer? I'm like, sure. And then eventually they decided we're going to find the money anyway, even without this grant, and move forward with it. And so I was more behind the scenes. And then when Robin Sussingham, the host, left for another opportunity, I became the host and sort of the face of it. But if that podcast had been about, I don't know, horses or just something else, then I might be standing up here talking to you about that. So one thing kind of leads to another, but food is always a great topic because we all eat, and it's about so much more than just what's on the plate. It's about the environment and our health and our memories and our culture and our family and so many other things. So it really is a great topic. And we have a question.
My name is Judge Matt Smith. I'm one of the county judges here. I only say that just to try to show my neutral, unbiased, so I'll give you some disclaimers. First of all, I am a member of the Florida Captains Association, so I'll let that out there. But also, my uncle, Scott Uncle, started the biggest vegetarian restaurant in Atlanta, Georgia back in 1979, Pure Vegetables. He ended up selling it, I believe, in the late 90s, and now he lives on the coast. But so I'm pretty well balanced. So I'm like, I believe in balance. I guess before I was a judge, I was a prosecutor. I married a defense attorney. I was in the defender's office. So it's all about balance. But so a quick question. So I always thought, and you've seen the evolution of vegetarian food and acceptance, even amongst us been a carnivore, like I said, I'm in the Florida Vegetarian Association, but particular times where I will eat a large vegetarian diet, whether it's for religious reasons or Lent or whatever. But I always thought my uncle about like wide acceptance or later acceptance of soybeans and soybean products were crucial to acceptance in the vegetarian, to the vegetarian menu. What do you think kind of have been the game changers the last couple of decades in terms of why vegetarian menus, vegetarian restaurants are so much more acceptable and mainstream now than they were maybe in the 80s or 90s? Like Scott and my uncle always thought that the acceptance of soybeans were really one of the crucial things that really kind of started happening in the early 90s. Is there anything like this century that's happened that has made vegetarian diets and vegetarian restaurants way more acceptable and mainstream than they were like in the 80s, let's say?
Ooh, that's such a good question. That's something I haven't thought about before. In the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, if you went to a cookout, there might be like one garden burger, very sad looking, looks kind of like cardboard, like off to the side of the grill, and nobody would touch it. And now, when I bring food to a cookout, I bring enough for even the meat eaters, because I know when they see it, we eat with our eyes first, they're gonna wanna try it too. And now it's almost flipped to where like the vegetarians are like, well wait, that was supposed to be mine, and now it's all gone, the meat eaters ate it all. So I do think soy is a big part of it, and the pea protein, if you look at the ingredients on a lot of those like Beyond Burgers and things like that, they are soy-based, and I know that some people, like my mom, can't have soy, it gives her headaches. So some people are watching their soy. I would maybe even say technology like the Food Network and definitely the internet and social media, because people were always doing this, but now they're sharing it and they're making it look more appealing. My uncle has been vegan for like 40 years, and when he would come to Thanksgiving, we would have like a plain baked sweet potato for him and some lettuce, and like that would be all he ate. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, let me make you Thanksgiving dinner, like it would blow your mind. And it's the same guy, but now even he knows what he can buy, and it's just so much easier. I was talking about this with a friend the other day, like these stores like Chuck's Natural Fields and Rollin' Oats and some of these local like health food stores that have been around for a long time. You used to have to go there to get a lot of stuff, but now you can get it at like Aldi, Walmart, Target, Publix. Like I shop a lot, any Aldi fans? I do a lot of shopping at Aldi. And it's super affordable, but I can get all the nuts. I can get flaxseed, chia seeds, which you can use to make like an egg binding agent. So I don't know, I guess the consumers are demanding it, and it's just way more accessible now. But that's a really good question. And no problem that you're the beef guy. We just had a guy named Huey Howard on the podcast last season, who's one of the oldest black cattle ranchers in Florida. He's in Felda. He's almost 90, and when he started in the 1950s, they wouldn't sell him the land, so he had to give the money to his white friend, and the white friend bought the land and then turned it over to Huey. So again, like food is about so much more than just what's on the plate, and that's why I just think it's so interesting to talk to everybody. The Zest is not a vegetarian podcast. We've had the cattle guy, we've had Andrew Tambuzzo, local sausage king, on. We've had oyster farmers and all sorts of people. So it's just interesting. And if you're ever like on a plane or stuck in an elevator with somebody, ask them what they ate for lunch as a kid, and you'll just have a great conversation.
Question, and I think someone else brought it up a little bit. A lot of it has to do with big ag and what they're promoting. So meat and milk has always been like, you need these things. They even give milk its own category, even though it's protein. And so it's really about like definitely information that's accessible now, and how my plate has changed, as well as starting to influence, we need to eat more vegetables, and then accessibility. But a lot of our diet in this country for the masses is influenced by what big ag is putting out there.
That's a great point.
Good morning. When I think about the arts and about creating a culture that consumes the arts in Tampa, I often to restaurants that have alternative menus. They're still not really alternative. And so I know that you're very connected in the arts world as well. What do you see is comparable that we can kind of help create that shift here, where there's more of a desire and consumption of the arts, just the way the food consumption changed?
I appreciate that. Yes, my other hat is that I'm a producer and co-host on WEDU Arts Plus on the PBS station. So I do a lot of work in the arts, which I think is how we first connected. I think, like you said, it has a lot to do with the marketing and sort of what's being presented. And it's tough because they're always trying to cut our arts funding. But West Central Florida has branded itself as the cultural coast, hasn't it? You've got like the Emerald Coast, the Space Coast, and I do sometimes work with Visit Florida on some freelance projects. And so I believe West Central Florida, like Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, Sarasota, is known as the cultural coast. And so they are trying to get that message out there. I'm in a Facebook group, and a woman from out of state was asking, like, where should I go on vacation in Florida in January? And I said St. Pete, and I gave her a million reasons why St. Pete is the place to be. So I do feel like St. Pete is starting to get that reputation, and Tampa needs to, like, I don't know, buddy up to St. Pete a little more? I'm not sure. Who was I just talking to who had photographed all the murals in Tampa? Bruce, yeah. So things like that are really helpful, and getting it out on social media. Celebrities always help. I do think celebrities have been a big part of the plant-based movement. And we have a lot of people here who either live here full-time or part-time, so maybe like rope in a couple of that. I don't know, does anyone else have any other suggestions?
No, you mentioned the documentary. I wonder if you could repeat that. Are there any other documentaries or recommended books?
So the documentary that I watched was called Vegucated, and at the time it was on Netflix. This was years ago. Vegucated. But there are so many. There's, I think, one called Forks Over Knives. There's one called What the Health. My husband has been watching this, I think, Netflix series called Rotten. And that's not even just about meat, but it's about, like, where do your avocados come from? Where does your chocolate come from? All this stuff. I mean, if you watch a documentary, you better be prepared to, like, make some changes because... And so when he's watching Rotten, I'm just, like, walking through the house like this because I don't want to know where my chocolate comes from. I love my chocolate. And then there are a lot of books as well. I can't think of a book that I've read. Alice Waters, she's a chef, I think in California, and she's done a lot on eating what's in season. So she, you know, cooks meat and everything, but just eating what's in season. So I'm not here to tell you not to eat beef or any of that stuff, but like just get closer to your food and know where your food comes from. And there are a lot of great books that will do that. Not only about like the individual ingredients, but food and its connection to culture. So I just read a really good book called The Pot Liquor Papers. Pot liquor, like if you ever make a pot of greens, it's that like liquid that's at the bottom that they say is liquid gold. It has a lot of nutritional value and people drink it and they use it medicinally. But John T. Edge, I think, EDGE, from the Southern Foodways Alliance. He wrote it a few years ago, and it's about the modern history of food in the South. So from like the civil rights movement and the lunch counter sit-ins to how barbecue has changed, to how Hurricane Katrina changed food and immigration is changing food in the South. So I would just say start with whatever you're interested in, and like one thing leads to another. Just let yourself like fall down the rabbit hole. It's pretty fun.
Shape on the photos because a great cookbook requires a good food blog.
Oh my gosh, the photos are everything. So again, that was through my connection with the arts. I had, someone had recommended to me do a story on my friend Chip Weiner. It was our friend James Van, who's an artist, a visual artist. He said, you should do something on my friend Chip Weiner. He's a food photographer. And we had an open spot. So I called him one night and said, hey, are you interested in being on the show? And then we met up at a restaurant in South Tampa and I interviewed him. And as you're talking, like bells are going off in my head because I knew in the back of my mind, I'm writing this cookbook, I'm gonna need someone to take the photos. And so I was like, ding, 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 he's way too good for me, but like reach for the stars. And so after that segment aired, I reached out to you and asked if you'd be interested. And you said yes, which was so kind. He's like my fairy godfather, so thank you for everything. And so we picked 3 days in, was it March? 2 years ago, like early March, late February. Okay, I have to tell you the little backstory because then you'll think he's already shaking his head. He has PTSD. He's already shaking his head. So we had a leak in our kitchen that had been undetected. I know, water's the worst. So we had a leak that had gone undetected for a long time, like behind our dishwasher in the cabinets. And there were a couple times when we'd come into the kitchen and there would just be water all over the floor. And so everybody's blaming everybody. You did it, the kids did it, my husband did it, the dog did it. And then one morning I woke up, I get up early, I was up at like 5 a.m. and I come in the kitchen and there's water on the floor. And I'm like, okay, well nobody else was up, nobody could have done this. So it turns out we discovered this leak, and guess when the insurance company decides to send someone to fix it, it was during the time that we had scheduled very much in advance to do the photo shoot. And we'd only chosen maybe like 30 or 40 dishes to photograph. I say only, but when you're making all those in 3 days, it's a lot of work. Chip had taken off from his day job. By the way, he's a counselor, and get you a photographer who's also a counselor because that's the perfect person to have when you're stressed out. My parents flew down from Ohio to help with the kids and all that because my husband was traveling for work. We were on a deadline for the publishing company, so this could not be rescheduled. And we were literally working around these construction workers. I had no kitchen. Am I exaggerating? I had no kitchen. I think we had a stove, and that was it. At one point, they came and wrapped the entire kitchen in this like giant industrial saran wrap. You know those dehumidifying fan, like those big dehumidifiers? We had like 3 of those in the kitchen. It was a disaster, and I've got my binder with all the ingredients I need. We had no sink, so we were washing dishes in the laundry room. It was like I can feel my body like tensing up as I'm even telling you this. It was horrible, but you see the end product, and that's all due to Chip. He made the photos look fantastic. I was storing food in my next door neighbor's fridge in the garage, and she was lending me her dishes. My parents came and they're, you know, chopping onions and navigating all these grocery stores they've never been to before. So it really did take a village. And I said earlier that the cookbook is kind of like your diary. For me, it really is, because not only is it an account of like what my family was eating, and there are pictures of my kids in there, you know, picking strawberries. Obviously, I took those before I even dreamed of having this cookbook. But then on top of it, it just reminds me of like the generosity of the whole community and how everyone came together. So it really does give me a little bit of PTSD, but also a very special place in my heart. And having done a lot of research into like Florida food history, it's not that different than how some of the early Floridians lived. So obviously we had the indigenous people, and then we had Europeans and enslaved Africans, and they all brought their different foodways, which is why some historians say Florida is the birthplace of fusion cuisine, because it was the first time that those 3 cultures came together. But then you move forward a couple hundred years and you have like the Florida crackers in the 1800s, and they did everything communally. They had, for the meat eaters, they had community hog killings. Because if you're killing a hog, you can't do that by yourself and process it all by yourself, so the whole community comes together. Or when it's like sugarcane time, the whole community comes together. So that's how I feel about this cookbook. It was really the whole community coming together, and Chip was like at the center of it all. So thank you. And I can't believe you're here today. You're everywhere.
Very enjoyable. Hope to come back again and tell us more stories when we get back to next book.
Thank you so much for having me. We'll see about that.
Café.
Oh, this is so cool. Thank you.
We'll see you all next week. Thank you.